Welcome back to Classic Mosaic Truth and to episode 4 of our explainer on Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance. Today, we're tackling consistency and growth. We're going to dive right into a super practical question. Is our obsession with being perfectly consistent actually the exact thing that's killing our personal growth? I mean, think about it. Have you ever noticed that intense, not in your stomach anxiety when you realize you want to change your mind about something? Why do we cling to consistency so desperately? It's like we feel we owe the world this predictable, unchanging version of ourselves. And honestly, the thought of contradicting a choice we made in the past, it can feel completely paralyzing. Emerson actually diagnoses this pressure perfectly. He has this fascinating way of viewing the world, describing society as a joint stock company. Think about what that really means. Society demands a predictable orbit from us, right? It wants you to fit neatly in, and in exchange, it offers you a false sense of safety, what he calls the securing of your bread. But the currency you're forced to use to buy that safety, it's your genuine individuality. Amen, that transaction comes at a massive cost because the fear of contradiction keeps us completely stuck. Emerson points out that we end up paralyzed by the fear of disappointing others. Why? Well, because the people around us really only have our past acts to compute our orbit. They're judging us on who we were yesterday. So if we constantly tailor our actions today just to match who we were yesterday, we are actively weakening our true spontaneous nature. This brings us to a concept Emerson is incredibly famous for critiquing: foolish consistency. Now, let's be clear. He's not talking about the virtue of being a reliable person, paying your bills or showing up when a friend needs you. Foolish consistency is when you hold a reverence for your past act or word, maintained simply to appease social norms. It's a stifling trap designed just to avoid the suspicion of your peers, and it completely blocks authentic, daily growth. To break us out of this trap, Emerson uses a striking and, slightly morbid metaphor. He asks, why drag about the corpse of your memory? It's a really powerful image. Instead of dragging around dead ideas just to look consistent, he urges us to drop that heavy corpse, let it go. Tap into the underlying immense intelligence of your present intuition. Your mind is a living, breathing thing. It is not a museum for your past decisions. Which leads us to arguably one of the most heavy-hitting quotes in all of American philosophy. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. A hobgoblin is literally a creature of irrational fear and mischief. What Emerson is telling us here is that greatness, true, expansive living, has absolutely nothing to do with rigid, fearful consistency. If you're spending your whole life checking your rearview mirror just to make sure you match yesterday, you're operating with a little mind. Notice the brilliant contrast he sets up between these two opposing forces. On one side, you have conformity. It's stagnant, backward-looking, driven by that heavy corpse of memory we just talked about. On the other side, true self-reliance. It's blooming, it's spontaneous, it is entirely focused on the present, and it relies completely on trusting your intuition. Conformity makes your every truth feel, well, not quite true. Self-reliance is what allows you to actually live. But, okay. As a modern, practical person, you might be listening to this and wondering, right, but suppose I should contradict myself. What then? What actually happens in the real world if you genuinely outgrow yesterday's beliefs? Won't people call you a hypocrite? Won't your friends or colleagues be totally confused? Emerson's radical advice? Completely embrace it. Fearlessly speak today's truth. As he puts it, speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again. Even if it completely shatters the expectations you set yesterday. Seriously, do not soften your truth today just to make it match the person you happened to be a week ago. Now, if you follow this radical advice, yes, for sure, you will face pushback. You will feel misunderstood. But take a look at the historical company you're keeping. Pythagoras, Socrates, Jesus, Martin Luther, Copernicus, Galileo, Newton. Literally every single one of these paradigm-shifting scientific and spiritual leaders was deeply misunderstood by their peers. Why? Because they simply refused to conform to the hobgoblins of their day. And then it delivers this unforgettable punchline to drive the whole point home. To be great is to be misunderstood. Emerson completely reframes the pain of social rejection here. It's no longer a sign that you're doing something wrong. Actually, it's a necessary hallmark of originality and greatness. It's just the price of admission for trusting your own soul over the demands of the crowd. To help us visualize how this actually works, he compares a sincerely lived life to a ship making zigzag tacks against the wind. If you're only looking at the ship day to day, tacking left, then tacking right, those daily adjustments might look incredibly inconsistent. It looks like it's contradicting itself, right? But cumulatively, when you zoom out, those actions propel the ship forward on its true course. Your honest, day-to-day contradictions work the exact same way. And by shedding the need for the crowd's approval, you start to uncover what Emerson calls the original self. Now, this isn't about being some stubborn, selfish individualist. Actually, when you tap into your deepest, truest intuition, you connect to a universal truth, a divine force. You discover that what's deeply true for your own private heart is actually true for all of humanity. He masterfully anchors this whole lesson in nature by contrasting our anxious human habits with the life of a rose. We have this tendency to quote past sages, worry about time, constantly check our own consistency. But the roses under his window, they just bloom. They exist perfectly and beautifully right in the present moment. They make zero reference to former roses or better roses. We really need to start living a lot more like the rose. And that brings us to our next section, the growth reset. So how do we translate this 19th century transcendental philosophy into our modern everyday lives? Well, we can boil Emerson's advice down into a simple 3-step practice we'll call the growth reset. Step 1, drop the weight of your past decisions. Just leave the corpse of memory behind. Step 2, live like the rose in the present. Trust your current instincts without constantly second-guessing them. And step 3, boldly articulate your authentic thoughts today in hard words. If that contradicts yesterday, so be it. Why is this growth reset absolutely vital? Because ultimately, we have to realize that true peace can never be outsourced to the crowd. As Emerson says, nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of principles. Your peace has to be built entirely on the architecture of your own inner authority, not on how consistently you manage to appease society. As you move through your day today, I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Are your actions right now reflecting your current growth, or are you simply conforming to the hobgoblin of foolish consistency? Take a moment today to really examine your own truth. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of our classic Mosaic Truth Explainer. Be sure to put these principles into practice, and I'll see you in episode 5 as we continue building a life of profound self-trust.